Hi, I'm Jamie Besant, the Visitor Engagement Coordinator at Soldiers Memorial Military Museum. Welcome to Changing the Face of Courage, part of Soldiers Memorial's Chow and Chat series. So before I introduce today's speaker, I've got just a few logistical things to go over. First of all, Soldiers Memorial and the Missouri History Museum are both open. We have a reduced capacity right now because of the pandemic, so we do suggest that you reserve your tickets ahead of time online. They're still totally free, but you can do that at mohistory.org. I also want to thank the sponsor of the Chow and Chat series, Beelman Truck Company, and to thank our members as well for supporting us and allowing us to put on programs like this. If you're interested in getting our newsletter or joining the membership, I'll put links to the website in the chat once the program gets rolling. So as far as the way the program is going to work, the audience won't have their mics or their cameras enabled. We won't be able to see you. But if you have any questions that you'd like to submit, please use the Q&A box in the bar at the bottom of your screen instead of the chat functioning, because I'll be looking in the Q&A box for questions once the speaker is finished. So I'll introduce our speaker for today. Her name is Betty Gonzalez. She's a Marine Corps veteran and the past Department of Missouri American Legion commander. And she's going to be telling us today about some of women's contributions to the US military, as well as their struggle for recognition that's still ongoing. So Betty, you can unmute yourself and take it away.
Okay, well, good afternoon. I'm just going to tell you the reason for the Changing the Face of Courage is because
I'm sorry to interrupt, Betty. Your video is actually still off.
Oh, how did it get off? Okay, hang on. Let me start it again. Sorry. Okay, now.
Perfect.
Okay, all right. So inclusion is exactly why we have a women's memorial in Washington, D.C., because a group of World War I women were tired of being overlooked and being left out of the historical narrative. Most museums that you go into, they may have like a back corner with something about women, but not very much. These women banded together, got congressional support, and gained approval to build a memorial specifically dedicated to honoring military women, educating the public on their service, empowering the next generations to consider military service, and remembering those who paid the ultimate price. In 1997, they saw their dream come to fruition. A contemporary women who joined the effort, the memorial was built right in the middle, in the shadow of our nation's capital, right there with the Lincoln Memorial, the Washington Memorial, and it actually adjoins the fences of Arlington National Cemetery. So it's in a very hollow spot, and it's just a beautiful memorial. The day that it was dedicated, there were tens of thousands of military women were there, and they felt like they have finally been recognized. I'd like to just share a few minutes of the ongoings of the museum and what I play a part as what they call their ambassador. So I have the opportunity to talk to many serving military women and women veterans and their families about the importance of telling their story. Um, More often than not, the response you get when you ask them for their story is, oh, I didn't do anything special. And yet the same veterans will tell me that they feel invisible, not recognized, that their male counterparts are thanked for their service, but not them. I have heard stories from a woman wearing her Naval Academy sweatshirt, asked which class her husband was in. From a woman parking in a veteran's parking spot at a grocery store, accosted by an irate citizen, reminding her that that spot was for a veteran. From a woman with a Bronze Star framed on her wall, shocked to find out that her own family assumed it was her husband's. In my own personal story, which isn't as crazy as theirs were, but I was the commander. I was the first woman commander for the state of Missouri for the American Legion. It only took almost 100 years. It was 99 years. And I drove around the state in this big van with American Legion stuff all over it. So every time I would stop to either pump gas or get out of the van, invariably somebody would stop me and say, "Oh, is your husband the commander of the American Legion?" Well, since you don't know me, I am usually never at a loss for words. So it was then my time to educate these people. And I would just give them a little lesson and tell them, well, women are allowed to vote now. And believe it or not, we're allowed to serve in the military. Just amazing. Um, these contributions are not new. They date back to the Revolutionary War, where women like Molly Pitcher fought, often disguised as men, and acted as spies, manned the cannons of the fallen, and nursed the wounded. Throughout our history, women have volunteered to serve, fought to serve, and demanded the right to serve. There are so many monumental moments in the history of our women veterans. I'll tell you a few of them. 2018 marked the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. More than 35,000 women served in World War I, either officially, as was the case of the Navy and the Marine Corps, or unofficially. And yet, when the war ended in 1918, women still did not have the right to vote. We did not get that until 1920. In 2017 marked the 100th anniversary of the first woman to enlist in the Navy, and was also the first woman to officially serve in any of the armed forces as a non-nurse occupation. Her name was Loretta Perfectus Walsh. The Marines were the second service. August of 2018 marked the 100th anniversary of the first woman to enlist in the Marine Corps. Her name was Opha May Johnson. Both of these were just ordinary girls who volunteered to serve. They too might say, "Oh, I didn't do anything special." But to us, 100 years later, they were pioneers, opening the way for hundreds of thousands who would follow. And we will make sure America remembers their name. On the 12th of June in 2018, we recognized the 70th anniversary of the Women's Armed Service Integration Act, which allowed women to serve as permanent regular members of the armed forces. Before this law passed in 1948, women, with the exception of nurses, served in military only at times of war. And prior to this time, women's status was considered temporary. And in the case of the Army, they were auxiliary, with, not in the Army, the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard. As progressive as it was, the law also limited the number of women who could serve to only 2% of the total forces in each branch. Today, women constitute 17% of the armed forces. This could be seen as a great change in not that much time, and yet it's a narrative that is not known well. There is so much history to be told, more than I can do justice to today. So many unsung heroes and pioneers. I'll introduce you to a few, and a couple of these are my favorite. Pioneers are not just the first of something. The real story is in the individual service of ordinary Americans who choose to serve. For whatever their reason, they served, and they served well, with no promises of glory, no promises that it would be easy, no promises that they wouldn't be injured or even die doing their job. In the words of Helen Keller, the world is moved along not only by the mighty shoves of its heroes, but also by the aggregate of the tiny pushes of each honest worker. The first individual I'm going to introduce you to is a Missourian, Kathy Williams. She was born in September of 1844 and died in 1893. She was an American soldier who enlisted in the United States Army under the pseudonym of William Cathy. She was the first African American woman to enlist and the only documented to serve in the United States Army posing as a man. Williams was born in Independence, Missouri, to a free man and a woman in slavery, making her legal status also that of a slave. During her adolescence, Williams worked as a house slave on the Johnson Plantation on the outskirts of Jeff City in Missouri in 1861. Union forces occupied Jefferson City in the early stages of the Civil War. Despite the prohibition against women serving in the military, Kathy Williams enlisted in the United States Regular Army under the false name of William Cathy on November 15, 1866, in St. Louis, Missouri, for a 3-year engagement. Passing herself off as a man, she was assigned to the 38th United States Infantry Regiment, which she passed after she passed a cursory medical examination. The regiment I joined wore the Zouave uniform, and only 2 persons, a cousin and a particular friend, members of the regiment, knew that I was a woman, Williams said, according to the Army archives. They were partly the cause of my joining the Army. Another reason was I wanted to make my own living and not be dependent on relations or friends. Documents show Williams served alongside the men in her unit without being recognized as a woman until she contracted smallpox and became ill. The disease caused her to be in and out of military hospitals until it was discovered that she was female and immediately discharged. Another example was Admiral Michelle Howard. She was the first African American woman to command a U.S. Navy ship, the USS Rushmore. She was the first to achieve 2- and 3-star rank. In 2006, she was selected for the rank of Rear Admiral, making her the first admiral selected from the U.S. Naval Academy class of 1982, and the first female graduate of the U.S. Naval Academy selected for flag rank. On July 1st, 2014, Howard became the first woman to become a U.S. Navy 4-star admiral. As Vice Chief of Naval Operations, which she began that same day, she was the first African American and the first woman to hold that post. Howard also became the first female 4-star admiral to command operational forces when she assumed command of the U.S. Naval Forces in Europe and U.S. Naval Forces Africa. Howard assumed command of the Expeditionary Strike Group 2 and Combined Task Force. She was aboard the amphibious assault USS Boxer in 2009. Boxer was the flagship for a multinational task force established to conduct counter-piracy operations in the Indian Ocean. She played a key role in the rescue of Captain Richard Phillips in the Maersk, Alabama hijacking, whose kidnapping by Somali pirates became a major motion picture film. Corporal Jessica Ellis, 24, of Bend, Oregon, was assigned to the 2nd Brigade Special Troops Battalion in the 101st Airborne Division, Fort Campbell, Kentucky. She died May 11th of 2008 in Baghdad of wounds sustained when her vehicle encountered an improvised explosive device. Air Force Airman First Class Casey Ruiz died October 2nd in 2015, serving during Operation Freedom Sentinel. She died October 2nd, 2015 at Jalalabad Airfield in Afghanistan when the C-130 Super Hercules aircraft in which she was riding crashed. She was assigned to the 66th Security Forces in Hanscom Air Force Base. Captain Dawn Haffiker, West Point graduate, military police officer, felt she had found her ideal career. It was an opportunity to be a part of something bigger than myself, Haffiker said. I was privileged to lead troops in combat, and that's something I wanted to continue to do. But after an ambush in Iraq in 2004, Haffiker woke up without an arm or a career. Medically retired from the military, what kept me up at night was not knowing what I was going to do. I still wanted to be with my platoon and figure out a way to do what I was doing before, she said. The fact that my soldiers were still over there motivated me to start a business and continue being part of the fight. She went on to found a defense company that has a revenue of over $25 million a year and growing. Now, this one you might all know. Bea Arthur, born Bernice Frankel. She enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1948 at 21 and became a truck driver for the Marine Corps. Her performance reports described her as argumentative and her attitude as overly aggressive, saying she is officious, but probably a good worker if she gets her own way. She left the Marines in 1945 and started acting school in 1947. Rear Admiral Grace Hopper joined the Naval Reserves in 1943. Known as Amazing Grace, she found the COBOL programming language and was a pioneer with many breakthroughs in the development of machine languages. She was retired in 1966 and then recalled to duty 1 year later to help the Navy standardize computer programs and languages. She would serve for another decade and a half. She was promoted to admiral at the age of 78. These are just a few ordinary girls going above and beyond their expectations to becoming quite extraordinary women. On the 3rd of December, 2015, Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter opened all jobs of combat to women, stating that there would be no exceptions. Now a woman who can qualify can be anything she wants to be in the military. Some believe this would be an empty gesture, that women wouldn't want to be fighter pilots or infantrymen or SEALs or Rangers, or if they did, they would not qualify. Well, women are interested in these fields and they are qualifying. I wouldn't begin to pretend that this has been universally popular, but it's happening and it will happen more. Those fearless women who are taking the first steps are blazing a new trail for generations to come. They are changing our view of opportunity and capability, because if you can see it, you can be it. If we want to be seen, it is important for us all to proudly recognize our own service, that in turn, the country can recognize it. Some of us join for education, some for travel, some for adventure, to escape, to embrace an opportunity. Everyone has their own reasons. Each one of us is living our own history, and is the history of a person, a family, a town, a team, a unit. But all of our histories taken together create American history. It is glorious, it's ungainly, occasionally unfair, even ugly at times. Nonetheless, it's our history to preserve, to learn from as a nation, and to serve as a springboard for future generations of citizen patriots. So we need to tell it, learn from it, grow from it, and become more from it. Trouble is, it's not in the heart of a servant to brag, and no one joins a service expecting to be a hero. As I have said, it's the mission of the Military Women's Memorial to honor the women who have served, educate the public about their existence, so that when someone says the word veteran or the word warrior or the word courage, the image of a woman as well as a man comes to mind. We do this by collecting the individual stories of women who have served or who are serving now. We can only be completely successful if every woman who has served tells her story. So if you still find yourself saying, "Oh, I didn't do anything important enough to tell," understand the fact that any woman who has volunteered to serve has done something extraordinary, because only 1% of the American population is serving. So if you are a woman veteran, or if you know a woman veteran, I encourage you all to tell your stories and insist that they do too. That's it.
Thank you. So we don't have any audience questions yet, but one occurred to me listening just now. You said that during the era of the WACs and the waves that those programs were limited to 2% of the total military personnel. Am I remembering that right?
Correct. 2%. They could not be they could not be more than 2% of each branch of the service.
So, do you know what the justification for that was?
Well, I guess in 1945, when they did that, that must have sounded like a good number to them. I have no idea. I mean, where did they make these numbers up anyway? I have no clue.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, they gave no justification.
That's fascinating. I had no idea. I mean, I didn't even know that the WACs and waves and the other programs that are escaping my mind right now, I didn't even know that those existed until I started working here at Soldiers Memorial.
Well, and that's just it. Nobody does. That's just it. That's why we need to get the information out. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing the stuff that goes on. I mean, when I joined, of course, I was Vietnam era, and then the slogan was for the women. It says, join the Marine Corps, free a man to fight. That was the
Huh.
so. In other words, I could sit and do my job. I was a accountant, so I did my job. So the poor guy that was sitting in that chair before me went to Vietnam, and he had a better chance of being killed, because I was sitting in his seat. So that was kind of
Yeah.
unfair.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle.
Yeah. So now you could be anything. I mean, I was just born too early. I wish I was in this era because I definitely would go again, but be able to do all this stuff. I mean, when I was in, you sat at a desk, did that kind of stuff. You didn't. The young ladies now that are going in, they can do whatever they want.
Right. And yeah, that really stuck with me as well when you said, people thought that women wouldn't want to, but it's clear from, people reveal their preferences, and there's clearly a preference for some people to put their lives in danger, which which is amazing to me. I thinking about what you said about freeing a man to fight. Sorry, this is like really difficult for me to conceptualize. I think there's something interesting about the way we talk about, it's dangerous work, or it's dirty work, or whatever, and like we kind of talk about it like you wouldn't want to do it, but the respect and recognition that comes with it is really valuable as well. I remember learning in the Ottoman Empire that you were only allowed to serve in the military if you were Muslim. And then there was a special tax on non-Muslims for supporting the military. And the idea was that they were like being protected, right? And so you could frame that as, a disadvantage that you have to serve in the military, but really it was kind of the advantaged group that was serving, and the disadvantaged groups that weren't able to serve. And that, I don't know why, but that feels very like at odds in my mind.
But I think during that era, the people that did fight, and I think that was the way their death was like an honor, I mean, so that's why they picked that higher echelon of people, maybe.
Yeah. And we certainly see service differently these days. I just I think there's still an element of that you put your life on the line, and that there's status and respect that comes with that, or at least that there should be, because part of the mission of your organization is the fact that women have put their lives on the line, and then the respect and recognition hasn't come with that.
Right. Yeah.
Well, we actually don't have any audience questions. Unless you have any last words, I'll probably move to closing here.
No, I'm good.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us today. We put on several St. Louis History Live programs every month. The next one will be just tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. Mississippi Meanderings, where the Peep Light leads. The speaker will be talking about naval, well, I suppose not naval navigation, but navigation on the Mississippi, how boaters of different types communicate with each other and stay safe. And then next Tuesday, March 16th at 11 a.m., we have Three Flags Day, Colonial St. Louis Women Under Changing Regimes. Our public tours coordinator is going to talk about the legal changes in women's status as St. Louis was under the Spanish Empire and the French Empire, and then finally the United States. So we look forward to seeing you. Thanks again to our sponsor, Beelman Truck Company, and our speaker, Betty Gonzalez. Really appreciate you coming on. We'll see you in the next one.
All right, thanks.